The North is cold and full of whispers.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive Timelines members-only videos you won't find on YouTube. All on our Patreon. Jon Snow opened his eyes and knew he had died. The memories crashed over him like a tidal wave. The Night King's ice-blue eyes, Daenerys burning King's Landing to ash, Ygritte bleeding out in his arms at Castle Black. The Red Wedding, Robb's body with Grey Wind's head sewn onto his shoulders, Ned's head rolling across the Sept steps, Rickon running in zigzags before Ramsay's arrow took him, Sansa's brutalization, Arya sailing away, everything, all of it. 8 years of war and death and failure. And then the dagger, his dagger, sliding between Daenerys' ribs as he kissed her, her eyes going wide, the dragon screaming, Jon being dragged away by Grey Worm, the taste of ash and betrayal. Then nothing. Darkness. Cold. The void. Now this. Jon sat up slowly. His hands were young, smooth, no scars from the watch, from battles, from the Night King's blade. He looked around the chamber. Winterfell. His old room in the servants' quarters, not the Lord Commander's chambers at Castle Black, not the King's apartments in Winterfell, not Daenerys' bed. He was 14 years old again. Season 1, Episode 1. Jon's breathing steadied. His mind raced through the possibilities. A dream? No. Dreams didn't feel this real, this solid. Magic? The Lord of Light? The old gods? It didn't matter. What mattered was this. He had a second chance, and this time, he would not fail. Jon stood and walked to the small mirror on his wall. The face looking back at him was young, unlined with Stark coloring. Dark hair, gray eyes. No crown, no scars, no weight of command. Just a bastard boy that everyone ignored. Perfect. Never again, Jon said to his reflection. His voice was cold. I won't watch them die again. Not father, not Robb, not any of them. The memories of his previous life settled into clarity. He remembered everything. Every mistake, every wrong choice, every consequence. Ned's honor had destroyed House Stark. Robb's trust in the Freys had gotten him killed. Sansa's naivety had made her a victim. Arya's revenge had left her empty. Bran's detachment had made him inhuman. And Jon's own honor, his stupid blind Ned Stark honor, had cost him everything. He'd refused the crown, refused power, bent the knee to Daenerys out of love and loyalty, and she burned 1 million people alive. No more. This time, Jon would not be honorable. He would be ruthless. Strategic. He would use every piece of knowledge from his future memories to manipulate, control, and dominate the Game of Thrones. He would save his family by any means necessary. And if that meant becoming the villain of his own story, so be it. A knock came at his door. Jon, father wants us in the courtyard. The king's party is coming. Robb's voice. Young, alive, happy. Jon closed his eyes. The brother he'd failed. The brother whose headless corpse he'd seen desecrated. Coming, Jon called. His voice was steady. He dressed quickly in plain blacks and grays. As he buckled his belt, he ran through what he knew would happen today. Robert Baratheon would arrive with his court. The feast tonight. Bran would want to climb tomorrow. The cat's paw would come tomorrow night. Jon's jaw clenched. Not this time. Bran wouldn't climb. The cat's paw would die, and Jon would use the Valyrian steel dagger to plant the seeds of suspicion that would eventually destroy the Lannisters. But first, he needed to establish his position. Jon walked through Winterfell's corridors with new eyes. Every stone, every banner, every face was a piece on the board. He saw servants hurrying to prepare for the king's arrival, saw guards drilling in the yard, saw Catelyn Stark directing the kitchen staff with her usual efficiency. She saw Jon and her expression hardened. That familiar look of cold hatred. In his previous life it had hurt. Now it was just information. Catelyn Tully Stark hated him because she thought he was Ned's bastard, proof of her husband's one moment of dishonor. She didn't know the truth, but Jon did. And he would use it. Jon found Ned in the courtyard, watching the guard practice. The Warden of the North stood straight and stern, ice strapped to his back. Jon studied his father, not his father, his uncle, with calculating eyes. Ned Stark, the most honorable man in Westeros. The man whose principles had gotten him killed, had doomed his family, had failed everyone he loved. Jon, Ned acknowledged him with a nod. The king arrives within the hour. Stay with Robb and your siblings. Keep out of sight during the formal greeting. Yes, my lord. Jon's voice was neutral. He wouldn't argue. Not yet. He needed Ned to see him as the obedient bastard for a little while longer. The hours passed in a blur of preparation. Jon watched everything, cataloging details. He saw Sansa preening in her finest dress, excited to meet Prince Joffrey. He saw Arya trying to sneak away from her septa. He saw Bran climbing a wall to get a better view. And Jon's blood ran cold. Not yet. Tomorrow was when Bran would climb the broken tower and see Jaime and Cersei. But Jon couldn't risk it. He had to keep Bran grounded. Bran, Jon called. Come here. I need your help with something. Bran scrambled down and ran over, eager. What is it, Jon? The king is coming. I want you to help me make sure all the horses are properly stabled. Father's trusting us with an important task. Jon made his voice serious. Responsible. Bran's eyes lit up. Really? Father said that? He did. Come on. We need to check the royal stables before they arrive. It was a lie, but it would keep Bran busy and away from towers. Jon led his younger brother to the stables and kept him occupied with invented tasks. By the time the horns sounded announcing the king's arrival, Bran had forgotten all about climbing. One disaster prevented. Jon watched from the shadows as Robert Baratheon rode through Winterfell's gates. The king was exactly as Jon remembered from his first life. Massive, loud, already half drunk. Cersei followed in a wheelhouse, beautiful and cold. Jaime Lannister rode beside it in his Kingsguard whites, golden and perfect. Jon's hands clenched. Jaime had pushed Bran from the tower. Cersei had ordered Ned's execution. Joffrey had started a war. The Lannisters had destroyed his family. Not this time. But Jon didn't let his face show anything. He stood quiet and still, just another bastard in the background. Invisible, unimportant. Robert embraced Ned like a brother. They walked toward the crypts. Robert always wanted to visit Lyanna's tomb first. Jon felt a twist in his chest. Lyanna, his mother, the woman he'd never known, the woman whose death had set everything in motion. The great hall filled with noise and warmth, Robert drinking and laughing. Cersei watching with contempt, Sansa staring at Joffrey with starry eyes, Tyrion observing everything with clever eyes. Jon sat at the bastard's table far from the high seats. In his previous life he'd been bitter about it. Now he was grateful. From here he could watch without being watched, could study his enemies without drawing attention. He catalogued everyone. Littlefinger stood near the high table, already whispering poison. Varys watched from the shadows. Sandor Clegane stood behind Joffrey, scarred and dangerous. Every piece was in position for the game that would destroy them all, unless Jon stopped it. After the feast, Jon slipped away. He walked through Winterfell's dark corridors to the broken tower on the eastern side of the keep. The tower where, tomorrow in the original timeline, Bran would climb and see Jaime and Cersei's secret. Jon positioned himself in shadows near the base. Waited, watched. Hours passed. Then, near midnight, he saw them. Jaime and Cersei, slipping away from the feast. They thought they were being discreet. They were wrong. Jon followed at a distance, watched them enter the broken tower, heard their voices echoing down. He didn't need to see what they were doing. He knew. The twins had been lovers since childhood. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen were their children, not Robert's. In his previous life, Bran had discovered this secret by accident. It had cost him his legs, nearly his life. It had started the War of Five Kings when Ned investigated and Littlefinger betrayed him. This time, Jon would control the information, would use it as a weapon when the moment was right. But not yet. Jon melted back into shadows and returned to his chambers. He had confirmation. The affair was happening exactly as he remembered. Good. That meant the timeline was intact. His knowledge was valid. Tomorrow, he would start changing things. Jon barely slept. His mind worked through strategies, contingencies, possibilities. When dawn came, he was already awake, already dressed, already moving. First order of business: prevent Bran's fall. Jon found Bran at breakfast. Want to go hunting today? We could take the horses out beyond the walls, maybe catch some rabbits. Bran's face lit up. Really? You'll take me? Of course, but we need to leave early, before the adults notice we're gone. It was manipulation, pure and simple, but it would keep Bran away from the broken tower, away from windows, away from climbing. Jon took his brother out beyond Winterfell's walls and spent the day teaching him archery, tracking, survival skills, things Bran would need. They returned at sunset, tired and happy. Bran ran to tell their father about the rabbit he'd shot. Catelyn frowned at Jon. She always frowned at him, but said nothing. Another day where Bran kept his legs. Another disaster averted. That night, Jon prepared for the cat's paw. In the original timeline, an assassin would come tonight with a Valyrian steel dagger to murder Bran in his bed. Catelyn would stop him. Summer would kill him. The dagger would become evidence that someone wealthy wanted Bran dead. Littlefinger would later lie and say Tyrion Lannister owned the dagger. Catelyn would arrest Tyrion, and the war would begin. This time, Jon would intercept the assassin, would take the dagger himself, would use it to point suspicion at the Lannisters without triggering immediate war. Jon positioned himself outside Bran's chamber after everyone had gone to bed. He wore dark clothes, carried a long knife from the armory, waited in silence. Hours passed. Midnight. 1 hour passed. 2. Then Jon heard it. Footsteps. Soft. Careful. Someone moving through the dark corridors with practiced stealth. Jon pressed himself into an alcove and watched. A man appeared. Rough clothes, scarred face, moving toward Bran's door. The cat's paw. In the man's hand, even in darkness, Jon could see the gleam of Valyrian steel. The assassin reached for the door handle. Jon moved. He was on the man in 3 silent steps. His knife came up under the assassin's ribs, angled upward toward the heart. The cat's paw gasped, tried to turn. Jon's other hand clamped over his mouth. "Quiet," Jon whispered. "Make a sound and I open your throat." The assassin struggled but was already weakening. Jon had aimed true. The man's blood was hot on Jon's hands. Within 30 seconds, the cat's paw went limp. Jon lowered the body silently, checked the corridor. Empty. He grabbed the Valyrian dagger from the dead man's hand, examined it. Dragon bone hilt. Exquisite craftsmanship. Worth more than most men would earn in their entire lives. Someone very wealthy had paid for this assassination. Jon searched the body quickly, found a purse of gold coins. Lannister gold, stamped with the lion. Too obvious? Possibly. But Jon would use it anyway. He dragged the body to a storage room nearby, positioned it carefully, made it look like the assassin had been caught in the act and killed defending himself. Jon placed the Valyrian dagger in the dead man's hand, the gold purse visible on his belt. Then Jon went to wake his father. He found Ned in his chambers, already asleep beside Catelyn. Jon knocked loudly. "Father, Lord Stark, there's been an attack." "What happened?" "An assassin, trying to enter Bran's chamber. I couldn't sleep. I was walking the corridors. I saw him." Jon's voice shook just slightly, enough to sound like a frightened boy. "I killed him. He's dead." "But father, you need to see what he was carrying." Ned followed Jon through the castle, Catelyn behind them. They found the storage room. Ned knelt beside the body, examining it with a warrior's eye. "Who is this man?" "I don't know. But look." Jon pointed to the dagger. Valyrian steel. "And look at his purse." Ned opened it. Lannister gold spilled into his palm. His face went hard. "This makes no sense. Why would the Lannisters want Bran dead?" "I don't know, father. But that dagger, only someone very wealthy could afford it. And there are only a few parties in Winterfell right now with that kind of wealth." Jon let the implication hang. Katniss's face was white. "Robert, the Lannisters, or..." She looked at Ned. "Could someone else?" "We can't jump to conclusions." Ned's voice was firm, but Jon could see the wheels turning. "But we will investigate." Quietly. He looked at Jon. "You saved your brother's life. Twice now if you kept him from climbing yesterday as well." Jon met his eyes. "I would do anything to protect this family, father." "I know." Ned gripped his shoulder. "Thank you, Jon. Now go. Get some rest. We'll handle this." Jon left, but he'd planted the seed. Ned Stark's honorable mind was now turning over an impossible question. Who in Winterfell wanted Bran dead? And why? The next morning, Jon made his move. He found Ned in the Godswood, praying before the heart tree as he often did. The weirwood's red leaves rustled in the cold wind. Ned knelt in silence, his head bowed. Jon approached and knelt beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Jon said quietly, "I know who my mother is." Ned went absolutely still. His eyes opened. He turned slowly to look at Jon. "What?" "Lyanna Stark, your sister, my mother." Jon's voice was calm, matter of fact. "I know what happened at the Tower of Joy. I know what she made you promise." Ned's face went white. "How could you possibly?" "I had a dream. The gods showed me things. Truths. I saw her dying in a bed of blood. I saw you kneeling beside her. I heard her words." Jon met Ned's eyes. "His name is Aegon Targaryen. Promise me, Ned. Promise me you'll protect him." Ned stood abruptly, grabbed Jon's arm and pulled him deeper into the Godswood, away from any possible listeners. When they were alone, hidden by ancient trees, Ned's face was a mixture of fear and fury. "Who else knows? No one, and no one will, as long as you give me what I need." Ned's expression shifted. Are you blackmailing me?" "Yes." Jon's voice was cold. "You lied to your wife for 15 years to protect me. You let her hate you. Hate me. You sacrificed your honor to keep Robert from learning the truth. Well, now I'm asking you to sacrifice a little more. Jon, you don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. Robert would kill me if he knew I was Rhaegar's son. That makes my life your secret to protect, and protecting it has a price." Ned looked at this boy, this child he'd raised as his own, and saw something that frightened him. Jon's eyes were too old, too knowing, too hard. "What do you want?" "I want you to name me Lord of the Wolfswood. A minor holding, nothing that will draw suspicion. Tell everyone it's a reward for saving Bran from the assassin. I want a small keep, 100 men, and enough coin to arm and equip them properly. That's a lordship. I can't just. You can. You're Warden of the North. You have the authority to grant lands and titles within your domain. One small lordship for a bastard son who saved your trueborn heir. No one will question it. They'll think you're finally acknowledging me." Ned's voice was quiet, pained. "And if I refuse? Then I go to Robert myself. Tell him the truth. See which one of us he kills first, the Targaryen bastard or the lord who lied to him for 15 years. Jon stepped closer. "I don't want to threaten you, Father, but I will protect this family, with or without your help. With you or over you." The silence stretched between them. Ned looked into Jon's eyes and saw no mercy there, no room for negotiation. Finally, Ned spoke. "If I do this, give you what you ask, what will you do with it?" "Save us. All of us. I know what's coming, Father. I know the threats we face. The Lannisters. The war. The things beyond the wall. I've seen it, and I can stop it. But only if you give me the tools I need." "That's impossible, is it? I knew about the assassin before he came. I knew Bran would want to climb. I know things I shouldn't know. Call it prophecy. Call it divine intervention. Call it madness if you want. But you know I'm right." Jon's voice dropped. "And you know that if you don't help me, everyone we love will die. Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran, Rickon, even you." Ned's breath caught. Is that a threat? It's a prediction. Unless we act. Unless we're smarter than our enemies. Unless we stop trying to be honorable and start trying to win. Ned closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had broken in his gaze. "You're asking me to abandon everything I believe in. I'm asking you to choose between your principles and your family. You can have one or the other. Not both." The words hit like a hammer. Ned stumbled back against a tree. His hands shook. "How did you become this?" he whispered. "I became what I needed to be, and you will too, if you love them." Long minutes passed. The Godswood was silent except for wind and rustling leaves. Finally, Ned straightened. His face was hard. "I'll grant you the Wolfswood lordship. I'll give you men and coin. But Jon," he grabbed Jon's shoulders, "whatever you're planning, whatever you think you know, don't become the thing we're fighting against. Don't lose yourself. I lost myself a long time ago. This is what's left. He walked out of the godswood, leaving Ned alone among the trees. That afternoon, Ned announced Jon's new status. In the great hall, before the assembled household, the Warden of the North proclaimed, "Jon Snow, in recognition of your courage in defending your brother against an assassin, and for your service to House Stark, I name you Lord of the Wolfswood. You will hold the keep there, command its garrison, and serve as a sworn banner to House Stark." The room erupted in murmurs. Catelyn looked shocked. Robb looked confused but pleased. Bran cheered. The other children had mixed reactions. Robert Baratheon, present for the announcement, laughed and clapped. "A bastard lord. Why not? The boy's got stones, Ned, saving your heir like that. Well done." Jon knelt and swore his oaths. When he rose, he was no longer just a bastard. He was a lord. Small and insignificant, perhaps, but it was a position, a foundation, a place to build from. And Jon intended to build an empire in the shadows. Over the next week, as the royal party prepared to leave for King's Landing, Jon made his preparations. He selected 100 men from Winterfell's garrison. Not the best warriors, but the most pragmatic. Men who would follow orders without question. Men who valued coin and security over honor. He requisitioned weapons and armor, claimed 1,000 gold dragons from Winterfell's treasury, arranged supplies for his new keep, and he began laying the groundwork for his network. The day before the royal party was set to depart for King's Landing, Jon approached Ned in private. "I want to travel south with you. Not all the way to King's Landing, just to the crossroads. There are things I need to arrange." "What things?" "Investments. Resources. People I need to meet." Jon's voice was casual. "The Wolfswood lordship is just a start, father. If I'm going to protect this family, I need more than 100 men and a wooden keep." Ned looked troubled but nodded. "Very well. But Jon, be careful. I don't know what you're planning, but the game you're playing is dangerous." "I know. That's why I'll win." The royal party left Winterfell on a cold morning. Jon rode with them, his new status making it acceptable for him to travel in the Stark contingent, rather than slinking along as a bastard heading for the Wall. The journey south would take a month at the royal party's slow pace. Jon had time, and he had plans. On the third day of travel, they stopped at an inn at the crossroads. The establishment was larger than most, catering to travelers moving between the north, the Vale, the Riverlands, and the south. It was also a known gathering place for sellswords, mercenaries, and men of flexible loyalty. Jon entered the common room and scanned the crowd. There, at a corner table, drinking alone, sat a man with a scarred face and calculating eyes. Bronn. Jon recognized him instantly. In his previous life, Bronn had been Tyrion's champion at the Eyrie, had served him loyally, as long as the gold flowed, had eventually been granted Highgarden for his service to the Lannisters, a sellsword with talent, pragmatism, and absolutely no honor. Perfect. Jon approached the table. "You're a sellsword." Bronn looked up, amused. "And you're a lordling playing dress-up. What of it?" "I need fighters, not honorable knights, not noble warriors, men who kill for coin and don't ask questions." Jon sat without being invited. "I'm offering double whatever you'd earn elsewhere, plus the possibility of knighthood and land if you serve well." Bronn studied him. "You're what? 15? 16? And you're hiring sellswords. What's the game, boy?" "I need men who understand that honor gets you killed, that loyalty is purchased, not given, that the only rule that matters is winning." Jon leaned forward. "I saw you fight 3 men in the courtyard this morning. You killed 2 and crippled the third in under a minute. You're good. I want good." "Flattering. But why should I trust some northern lordling? Because I'm offering you something you'll never get anywhere else. A chance to be more than a sellsword. Work for me, and I'll make you a knight, give you land, a position, everything you've never had because you weren't born to the right family. Big promises from a little lord. I keep my promises, unlike nobles who hire you and then betray you when it's convenient." Jon pushed a purse across the table, heavy with gold. 50 dragons. Retainer. Prove yourself over the next month, and there's more where that came from. Bronn opened the purse, whistled at the amount. "What do you want me to do?" "Travel to King's Landing. Recruit 50 more men like you from Flea Bottom. Sellswords, cutthroats, free riders. I don't care what they've done before, as long as they can fight and follow orders. Tell them they're being hired as household guards for House Stark. Nothing official. Nothing that draws attention. A private army. Exactly. Can you do it? Bronn grinned. I like you, boy. You've got more sense than most lords I've met. Yeah, I can do it. But I want 100 dragons more when I deliver. Done. Here's where to send word when you have the men. Jon handed him a sealed letter with instructions. Report to Lord Eddard Stark's household in King's Landing. They'll be expecting you. Bronn's grip was firm. You know, for a lordling you don't fight like one. You think like a sellsword. I'll take that as a compliment. It is. Jon left the inn. Another piece in position. Bronn would recruit the men. Jon would position them in King's Landing, and when the time came, he would have his own private force answering to no one but him. The royal party continued south. Jon rode in silence, watching everything, cataloging details. He noted which guards were loyal to the Lannisters versus the Starks. Noted Littlefinger's position in the column, always near Ned, always whispering. Noted Varys riding in a covered wagon, observing without being observed. On the 10th day, they stopped at another inn. This one was smaller, more isolated. Jon saw Tyrion Lannister sitting alone at a table, reading a book and drinking wine. In his previous life, Jon and Tyrion had bonded here, had talked about being bastards and outcasts, had formed a strange friendship built on mutual understanding of what it meant to be unwanted. Not this time. Jon approached the table. Tyrion looked up, surprised. Ah, the newly minted Lord Snow. Come to join me for a drink? No. I came to deliver a warning. Tyrion's eyebrows rose. How ominous. Please, sit. Threaten me properly. Jon sat, stared at Tyrion with cold eyes. I know about Tysha. Tyrion's wine cup stopped halfway to his lips. His face went absolutely still. What did you just say? Tysha. Your first wife. The crofter's daughter. The one your father made you believe was a whore. The one Tywin forced you to watch as his guards raped her. The one you were made to rape last, after giving her a gold coin. Jon's voice was flat, clinical. I know what he did to you. What he made you believe about her. Tyrion set down his cup carefully. His hands shook. How could you possibly? No one knows about that. No one except, she wasn't a whore, Tyrion. Tysha loved you. She married you because she wanted to. Your father lied. He destroyed her to teach you a lesson about marrying beneath your station. Stop. Tyrion's voice was strangled. How do you know this? I know many things. I know your father despises you. I know Jaime helped orchestrate the whole thing because Tywin ordered it. I know you've spent your entire life trying to drown that memory in wine and whores and clever words. Jon leaned forward. And I know you hate him. Really, truly hate Tywin Lannister with every fiber of your being. Tyrion was breathing hard. His eyes were wet. What do you want from me? I want you to remember this conversation. When the war comes, and it will come, you'll have to choose sides. Your family or justice. Tywin or yourself. Jon stood. Choose wisely, Tyrion. The imp who loved a crofter's daughter is worth saving. The Lannister who drinks to forget isn't. He walked away, leaving Tyrion sitting alone, shaking, staring into his wine like it held answers. Jon didn't look back. He'd planted the seed. Tyrion would remember. And when the moment came when the Lannisters fell and choices had to be made, Tyrion would remember that someone had seen him, really seen him. Not as a dwarf or an imp or a disappointment. As a man who'd been wronged. The journey continued. Days blurred together. Jon spent his time studying the people around him, making notes, planning moves 3 and 4 steps ahead. On the 20th day, they reached the outskirts of King's Landing. The capital sprawled before them, 500,000 people packed inside ancient walls. The smell hit Jon from a mile away, fish and shit, and smoke, and desperation. Ned turned to Jon. This is where we part ways. You're returning to the Wolfswood? Eventually. I have business in the city first. A few days, at most. Be careful, Jon. King's Landing is more dangerous than you know. Jon almost laughed. He'd died there twice in his previous life. Once on Daenerys's pyre, Once in Grey Worm's custody, I'll manage. They entered the city. The Red Keep loomed above on Aegon's high hill. Jon had walked those corridors before, had sat the Iron Throne, had ruled from those chambers. Not yet. Not in this timeline. But soon enough, Jon would return. And when he did, it would be on his own terms. The Stark party was given quarters in the Tower of the Hand, Ned's new chambers as Hand of the King. Jon stayed for one night, just long enough to establish his presence and ensure Bronn would know where to find him. The next morning, Jon slipped out early. He moved through King's Landing streets with purpose. The city was exactly as he remembered. Sprawling, filthy, dangerous. Flea bottom spread like a cancer at the base of the hills. The merchant districts hummed with commerce. The docks stank of fish and tar. Jon made his way to a specific tavern in the shadow of the Dragon Pit ruins, a place where information was bought and sold, where the people who really ran King's Landing came to do business. He entered and scanned the room. There, in a dark corner, barely visible, sat a fat man in rich clothing, his hands folded peacefully. Varys, the spider, master of whisperers. Jon walked directly to his table and sat down uninvited. Varys looked up, surprised. "My lord, you are bold to approach me so directly. I'm not interested in games, Lord Varys. I'm interested in an arrangement." "And what arrangement would that be?" Jon leaned forward and spoke in perfect high Valyrian. "The dragon has 3 heads. I am one of them." Varys's eyes widened fractionally. "My lord, I'm afraid I don't." "Aegon, son of Rhaegar and Lyanna, the prince that was promised." Jon switched back to common tongue. "Stop pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. You've suspected since I arrived. Now I'm confirming it." Varys studied him, really studied him. After a long moment, he spoke carefully. "Many claim royal blood. Why should I believe a northern bastard? Because you serve the realm, not the throne. You want stability, not chaos. And you've been waiting for a Targaryen worth supporting." Jon's voice was cold and certain. "The Lannisters will burn everything trying to hold power. Daenerys Targaryen will burn everything trying to take it back. But I know how to stop them both. I know the real war. The one coming from beyond the wall. The White Walkers." Varys's voice was neutral. "You believe in the old stories. I don't believe. I know. They're coming. And when they do, Westeros needs to be united. Not fighting over a throne. Not destroying itself in civil war." Jon met his eyes. "I can unite the realm, but I need your network, your information, your support. And if I refuse, then watch the realm burn. Watch the Lannisters tear themselves apart. Watch Stannis and Renly go to war. Watch Robb Stark march south. Watch everyone die." Jon stood. "Or help me. Help me end the Lannister threat before it begins. Help me prepare for the real enemy. Your choice." Varys was quiet for a long moment. "You speak with remarkable certainty for one so young. I've seen what's coming. Believe me or don't. But make your choice soon. Because I'm moving forward with or without you." Jon walked out of the tavern. He didn't look back. Didn't wait for an answer. Varys would either join him or become irrelevant. Either way, Jon had more pieces to position. He had 2 more days in King's Landing, 2 days to set the stage for Littlefinger's destruction, and Jon intended to use them well. Jon spent the next 2 days in King's Landing mapping the city's underworld. He moved through Flea Bottom like a shadow, observing the flow of information, the exchange of coin, the patterns of power that existed beneath the surface of the capital. In his previous life, he'd learned these streets as Lord Commander preparing for war. Now he used that knowledge to build a different kind of army. Bronn found him on the 2nd day in a tavern that catered to sellswords and cutthroats. "You work fast," Bronn said, sliding into the seat across from Jon. "I've got 30 men already. Good fighters. No questions asked. Give me 3 more days and I'll have your 50. Make it 75. I'll pay the difference." Jon pushed another purse across the table. "And I need you to identify someone for me. A man named Janos Slynt, commander of the City Watch." Bronn's eyes narrowed. "The Gold Cloak's commander? What about him?" "He's in Littlefinger's pocket. Takes bribes. Sells justice to the highest bidder. I need to know his routine, where he goes, who he meets, everything. Planning something? Always. Can you do it?" For the gold you're paying. I'll get you his breakfast menu if you want it. Bronn grinned. You know, I'm starting to like this job. You're not like other lords. You think like a criminal. The best criminals are just lords without titles, and the worst lords are just criminals with crowns. Jon stood. Report everything to me at the Tower of the Hand. Use the servants' entrance. Tell them you're delivering supplies for Lord Stark's household. Discreet. I like it. Jon left Bronn and made his way through the winding streets toward the Red Keep. The massive fortress dominated the skyline, red stone walls rising from Aegon's high hill. Jon had walked these halls as king in the north, as hand to Daenerys, as prisoner awaiting execution. Now he walked them as Jon Snow, bastard lord of an insignificant northern holdfast, invisible, unimportant, perfect. He found Ned in the Hand's Tower, reviewing petitions with Maester Pycelle. The old man droned on about tax disputes and grain shipments. Ned looked exhausted. The weight of being Han was already crushing him. Jon waited until Pycelle left, then entered. Jon, I thought you'd return north by now. I wanted to make sure you were settled first. Jon closed the door. Father, I need to warn you about someone. Ned's expression hardened. Another warning? Another secret? Petyr Baelish. Littlefinger. Don't trust him. Petyr is an old friend. He grew up with your mother, with Catelyn. He's in love with her. Obsessively. Dangerously. And he'll betray you to have her. Jon's voice was flat. He's also corrupt. He embezzles from the crown, owns brothels, uses prostitutes as spies, and he orchestrated Jon Arryn's death. Ned went very still. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Jon Arryn was investigating King Robert's children. He discovered they weren't Robert's. Littlefinger couldn't allow that information to come out. It would destabilize the realm and his position. So he convinced Lysa Arryn to poison her husband. Lysa Arryn murdered Jon? Ned's voice was incredulous. She loved him. She loved Littlefinger more. He manipulated her, used her. And when Jon Arryn got too close to the truth about Joffrey, Cersei, and Jaime, Littlefinger eliminated him. Jon pulled out the Valyrian steel dagger, the one from the cat's paw. This is how I know. This dagger will become evidence. Littlefinger will lie and say it belongs to Tyrion Lannister. He'll use it to start a war between Stark and Lannister. Don't let him. The same way I knew about the assassin, the same way I know what's coming. Jon met his eyes. Trust me or don't. But watch him. Watch everything he does. And when he makes his move, you'll see I'm right. Ned was quiet for a long moment. If what you say is true, Littlefinger is one of the most dangerous men in Westeros. He is. That's why I'm going to destroy him before he destroys us. I'm giving you warning. Littlefinger will be dead within a month. When it happens, don't investigate too closely. Jon turned to leave. Oh, and father? Start looking into King Robert's bastards. All of them. Find a boy named Gendry in Fleabottom. He's an apprentice blacksmith with Lord Tobho Mott. Look at his face, his hair, his eyes. Then look at Joffrey. You'll see the truth. Jon left before Ned could respond. The game was in motion now. Ned would investigate, would find Gendry, would see the genetic impossibility of Joffrey being Robert's son. And when that happened, when Ned had the evidence in his hands, Jon would be there to guide the next moves. But first, Littlefinger had to fall. Jon returned to his chambers in the Tower of the Hand and spent the evening planning. He had the dagger. He had Bronn recruiting fighters. He had planted seeds with Ned and Varys. Now he needed to set the trap. The next morning, Jon sought out Tyrion Lannister. He found the imp in the Red Keep's library, surrounded by books and wine. Tyrion looked up as Jon entered. The haunting lordling returns. Come to unearth more buried trauma? No, I came to offer you something. And what could a bastard lord possibly offer me? The truth about your father, about what he's planning, about the war that's coming. Jon sat across from him. And a chance to choose which side you're on before it's too late. Tyrion set down his wine cup. You have my attention. Your father knows about Jaime and Cersei. He's known for years. He allowed it because bastard grandchildren on the Iron Throne gave him power without responsibility. But now, the secret is coming out. Ned Stark is investigating Robert's children. Within weeks, maybe days, he'll have proof that Joffrey is Jaime's son. That's insane. Father would never. Had Elia Martell raped and murdered, presented their corpses to Robert as gifts. You think he'd hesitate to sacrifice Cersei's children if it served his interests? Jon leaned forward. When the truth comes out, Tywin will cut his losses. He'll throw Cersei to the wolves, probably Jaime too. He'll save House Lannister at their expense. The only question is, will he sacrifice you as well? Tyrion's face was pale. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the only Lannister worth saving. You're smart enough to see the truth, pragmatic enough to act on it, and hurt enough by your family to choose differently. Jon stood. When the war comes, you'll have a choice. Stand with your father and die with the rest of them, or stand with the people trying to save the realm. Choose wisely. Jon left Tyrion sitting among his books, staring into nothing. 3 days later, Bronn delivered his report. Janos Slynt meets with Littlefinger twice a week at a brothel on the Street of Silk, always the same time, midnight on Tuesdays and Fridays. They think they're being careful, they're not. What do they discuss? Couldn't get close enough to hear. But Slynt always leaves with a heavy purse, and Littlefinger always looks pleased. Bronn grinned. You want me to arrange an accident? Not yet. I need Littlefinger alive for a few more days. But keep watching. When I give the word, I'll need you to move fast. The boys are ready. 78 in total. Best cutthroats in King's Landing, and that's saying something. Good. Keep them ready. He wasn't allowed to attend officially, but the Tower of the Hand had passages and alcoves where a quiet person could listen without being seen. He heard Robert's complaints about the cost of the realm, heard Littlefinger's smooth reassurances about the treasury, heard Varys's reports on Daenerys Targaryen across the narrow sea, heard Ned's growing frustration with the politics of King's Landing. And he watched Littlefinger work, watched him whisper to Ned, offering friendship and guidance, watched him manipulate the other council members with practiced ease, watched him position himself as indispensable. In his previous life, Jon had barely paid attention to Littlefinger until it was too late, had dismissed him as a minor player, had failed to see the chaos he created. Not this time. On the 10th day after Jon's arrival in King's Landing, Catelyn Stark appeared at the Red Keep. Jon saw her enter through the main gates, travel-worn and anxious. She'd ridden from Winterfell with the Valyrian steel dagger, exactly as she had in the original timeline. She was here to show Ned the evidence of the assassination attempt on Bran. Everything was proceeding exactly as Jon remembered. He watched from a window as Catelyn was escorted to Ned's chambers, watched Littlefinger intercept her in the hallway, his face lighting up with calculated surprise, watched them disappear into a private room. Jon descended from his position and positioned himself near the room where Catelyn and Littlefinger were meeting. The door was thick oak, but Jon knew a servant's passage that ran behind it. He slipped inside and pressed his ear to the wall. Littlefinger's voice came through, smooth and concerned. Lady Stark, what a surprise. And what brings you to King's Landing? Someone tried to murder my son, an assassin with this dagger. Jon heard the scrape of metal on wood. Valyrian steel. Worth a small fortune. Someone wealthy wanted Bran dead. May I see it? A pause. Then, Littlefinger's voice, perfectly calculated. I know this blade. It's mine. Or rather, it was mine. I lost it in a wager. To whom? Tyrion Lannister, during the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day. The lie. The exact lie Jon had been waiting for. Jon smiled in the darkness. Littlefinger had just sealed his own fate. That evening, Jon arranged a private meeting with Ned in his chambers. Catelyn is here, Ned said without preamble. She brought the dagger from the assassination attempt. I know, and Littlefinger lied to her about it. Ned's eyes narrowed. How did you? I told you I know things. Littlefinger claimed the dagger belonged to Tyrion Lannister. That he lost it in a bet. It's a lie, and I can prove it. How? By asking the right questions. Call a small council meeting tomorrow. Have Littlefinger repeat his story about the dagger in front of witnesses. Then ask Sir Jaime Lannister about that tourney. Ask him who jousted, who won, who Tyrion bet on, and what will that prove? That Littlefinger is lying. Jaime fought in that tourney. He remembers it clearly. Tyrion bet on his brother. He always does. There's no way Tyrion lost that particular bet to Littlefinger. The timeline doesn't work. The story doesn't work. And once we catch Littlefinger in the lie, we can ask why he lied, what he's hiding, who he's protecting. Ned studied Jon for a long moment. You've thought this through. I've had time to think. Will you do it? If you're wrong, I'm not wrong. Trust me. One more time. Just trust me. Ned nodded slowly. Tomorrow, then. We'll see if your prophecies hold true. The small council meeting convened the next morning in the council chambers. Robert sat at the head of the table, already drinking despite the early hour. Ned sat at his right hand. Littlefinger lounged casually. Varys watched everything with his enigmatic smile. Grand Maester Pycelle dozed in his chair. Jon wasn't allowed in the council chambers, but he'd positioned himself in a servant's alcove where he could hear everything. Ned began, "My lords, I've received troubling news from Winterfell. There was an attempt on my son Bran's life. The assassin carried a Valyrian steel dagger. He placed the blade on the table. Littlefinger's eyes flicked to it. Lord Baelish, you examined this dagger yesterday. You said you recognized it. I did, Lord Hand. It was mine once. I lost it in a wager to Tyrion Lannister during the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day." Robert leaned forward, interested despite his hangover. "The imp tried to kill Ned's boy?" "I cannot say for certain, Your Grace. But the dagger was his." Ned's voice was calm. "That's interesting, because I asked Sir Jaime about that tourney this morning. He remembers it well. He jousted against Sir Loras Tyrell in the final tilt. He also confirmed that his brother Tyrion bet heavily on him. Tyrion won his wagers that day. He didn't lose." Silence fell across the council chamber. Littlefinger's smile didn't waver. "Perhaps Sir Jaime's memory is faulty. It was several years ago. Or perhaps you're lying." Ned's voice was steel. "Why would you lie about who owned this dagger, Lord Baelish? What are you trying to hide? My Lord Hand, I assure you, summon Sir Jaime," Robert commanded. "Bring him here." Now, within minutes, Jaime Lannister arrived, resplendent in his Kingsguard whites. He looked confused at being summoned. "Sir Jaime," Robert said, "the tourney for Joffrey's name day. You remember it?" "Of course, Your Grace. I won the final joust against Sir Loras." "And your brother? Did he bet on you?" "He always bets on me, Your Grace. Won quite a sum that day." Jaime's eyes flicked to Littlefinger. "Why do you ask?" "Because Lord Baelish claims Tyrion lost a bet to him that day. Lost this dagger." Robert gestured to the Valyrian blade. Jaime's expression hardened. "That's impossible. Tyrion didn't lose. He won. I remember because he was insufferably smug about it for weeks." Robert turned to Littlefinger. His face was dangerous. "You lied to my hand, in my council, about evidence in an assassination attempt against a warden's son. Why?" Littlefinger's mask finally cracked. "Just slightly. Your Grace, there must be some confusion." "There's no confusion." Ned stood. "You lied to frame Tyrion Lannister. You wanted us to suspect the Lannisters. You wanted to create conflict between our houses. The question is why?" Varys spoke for the first time. His voice mild. "Perhaps Lord Baelish thought he was helping. Creating useful tension between great houses does serve certain interests." "What interests?" Robert roared. "Whose side are you on, Littlefinger?" "The Crown's, always the Crown's." "Liar." Ned's voice cut through. "You're on your own side. You've always been on your own side. You create chaos because chaos is a ladder for men like you." Jon smiled in his hiding place. Ned was using the exact words Jon had planted, the exact arguments Jon had prepared him for. "Lord Baelish," Robert said coldly, "you are removed from your position as Master of Coin, effective immediately. You will surrender all records and keys to the Treasury. You will confine yourself to your chambers while we investigate your financial dealings. Your Grace, this is... Be grateful I'm not throwing you in a black cell. Get out of my sight." Littlefinger fled, but Jon saw his face as he left, saw the calculation, saw the planning. Littlefinger wasn't finished. He would try to salvage this, would try to escape, or bargain or manipulate his way out. Jon wouldn't let him. That night, Jon met with Bronn in a tavern near the docks. Littlefinger's been removed from the small council. He'll try to run. Tonight, probably. He has escape routes planned, ships waiting in the harbor, safe houses throughout the city. You want me to stop him? I want you to kill him. Make it look like robbery. He has enemies in Flea Bottom, people he's cheated, prostitutes he's abused, debtors he's ruined. One of them finally got revenge. That's the story. Bronn grinned. Where and when? He'll try to reach the docks around midnight. There's a ship called the Merlin Queen leaving with the tide. He's paid the captain in advance. Intercept him before he gets there. Consider it done. What about the body? Leave it in an alley. Let the city watch find it in the morning. Natural as can be. Jon pushed a heavy purse across the table. This is for the men. Divided equally. And Bronn? Make sure there are no witnesses. No survivors. Clean. You know, for a noble, you think like a killer. Pragmatism keeps you alive. Bronn left. Jon sat alone in the tavern, nursing a cup of watered wine he wasn't drinking, and waited. The hours crawled past. Midnight came and went. 1 hour passed. 2. Then Bronn returned. His clothes were slightly disheveled. A small bloodstain on his sleeve that could be wine or could be something else. Done. Found him trying to sneak through Flea Bottom with a bag of gold and fake documents. He fought. Not well, but he tried. My boys were enthusiastic. By the time they were finished, even his mother wouldn't recognize him. Where's the body? Alley near the Street of Silk. Ironic, really. Right next to one of his own brothels. The gold cloaks will find him by dawn. Good. Here. Jon pushed another purse across. For your men. And for you, this. He handed Bronn a sealed letter. When Lord Stark asks, and he will, you were never here. You saw nothing. You know nothing. I'm already forgetting everything. Bronn pocketed the purse and the letter. What's next? Wait. Watch. I'll send for you when I need you. Bronn left. Jon sat in the darkness and felt nothing. No guilt. No satisfaction. Just cold certainty that a threat had been eliminated. Littlefinger had destroyed his family in the previous timeline, had betrayed Ned, had sold Sansa to the Boltons, had created the chaos that killed thousands. Not this time. The next morning, the City Watch found Littlefinger's body exactly where Bronn had left it. Janos Slynt reported to the small council that the Master of Coin had been murdered during a robbery. A tragic accident. Common in King's Landing's dangerous streets. Robert was furious, not because he cared about Littlefinger, but because it made him look weak that a council member could be killed so easily. He ordered an investigation. It went nowhere. Bronn's men had been thorough. Ned was quieter. He knew. Jon could see it in his eyes when they met afterward. Ned knew Jon had orchestrated this, but he said nothing, did nothing, just looked at his nephew, his bastard, his responsibility, and saw someone he didn't recognize. Are you satisfied? Ned asked quietly when they were alone. One threat eliminated. Several more to go. Jon, what you did saved your life. Saved our family. Littlefinger would have betrayed you the moment it served his interests. He would have sold you to the Lannisters and laughed while they took your head. Jon's voice was cold. I did what needed to be done. At what cost? Your soul? I lost that a long time ago. This is what's left. And what's left is enough to keep you alive. Ned turned away. I don't know you anymore. Good. The Jon you knew would have let honor destroy us. This Jon will burn the world before I let that happen. Jon left his father standing in the tower, staring out at the city where one more player had been removed from the board. 2 days later, Varys requested a private meeting. They met in the Tower of the Hand, in a small chamber Jon had swept for listening devices. Varys entered with his usual gliding walk, his hands folded in his sleeves. Lord Snow, or should I say, Lord Aegon. Jon is fine. Names are just tools. I'll use whichever serves my purpose. Varys smiled. Spoken like a true player of the game. I've been watching you. Littlefinger's death was expertly managed. No evidence. No witnesses. Just a tragic robbery that eliminated one of the most dangerous men in Westeros. You disapprove? On the contrary, I approve heartily. Littlefinger was chaos incarnate. The realm is better without him. Varys sat gracefully. But it does raise questions. What else are you capable of? What other moves are you planning? That depends. Are you with me or against me? I am with the realm, as I've always been. If you truly can unite Westeros and prepare for the threat from the north, then I am with you. If you're simply another ambitious lord seeking power, then we have nothing to discuss. Jon studied the spider. In his previous life, Varys had supported Daenerys, had worked to put her on the throne, had believed in the Targaryen restoration right up until Daenerys proved herself a tyrant, and Varys had tried to poison her. I don't want the throne. I want Westeros to survive. The White Walkers are coming. The dead are coming. And when they arrive, the Seven Kingdoms need to be united under competent leadership, not tearing themselves apart over who wears a crown. I don't care. Robert can keep it. Or Stannis if Robert dies. Or anyone else who's practical enough to listen when I tell them the real war is in the north. Jon leaned forward. What I need from you is information. Your spy network. Your knowledge of the players. Your ability to move pieces without being seen. And in return, I'll give you what you've always wanted. Stability. A realm at peace. A ruler who actually gives a damn about the small folk. Everything you've been working toward for decades. Varys was quiet for a long moment. You know, I've served many masters. Kings and queens and would-be conquerors. Most of them were fools who thought power meant something. But you understand that power is just a tool, a means to an end. The end is survival. Everything else is negotiable. Then we have an accord. Varys extended his hand. I will serve you, Jon Snow Targaryen. I will give you my network, my knowledge, my support. In return, you will save the realm. They shook on it. Another piece secured. Now then, Varys said, let me tell you about the challenges ahead. The Lannisters are moving. Tywin knows something is wrong. Littlefinger's death, Ned's investigations, the questions about Joffrey's parentage. He's calling his banners, quietly, but he's calling them. How long do we have? Weeks. Maybe a month. Tywin won't move openly until he's certain of his position. But he will move. Varys's voice was serious. And when he does, the realm will burn unless we're ready. Then we need to move faster. What about Robert's bastards? All of them. There are at least 16 that I know of, scattered throughout the Seven Kingdoms. Gendry and Fleabottom is the most obvious. He looks exactly like Robert did at that age. But there are others. Maya Stone in the Vale, Edric Storm at Storm's End, Bara, an infant at one of Littlefinger's old brothels. Can you bring them to King's Landing? Quietly. For what purpose? Evidence. Physical proof that Robert's bloodline breeds true. Black hair, blue eyes, strong features. Every single bastard looks like a Baratheon. Put them all in a room and then bring in Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen. The genetic evidence will be undeniable. Varys smiled. Elegant, brutal, effective. I like it. I'll begin immediately. How long? 2 weeks to gather them all. Another week to bring them here without attracting attention. Do it. And Varys? Make sure they're protected. The Lannisters might try to eliminate them once they realize what we're doing. Consider it done. Varys left. Jon sat alone in the chamber and felt the pieces aligning. Littlefinger was dead. Varys was recruited. Bronn had his network of fighters. Ned was investigating. The evidence was being gathered. Soon, very soon, the Lannisters would fall. But Jon had one more piece to secure before the endgame began. He needed to protect the Stark children. Jon found Sansa in her chambers, practicing her embroidery. She looked up as he entered, surprised. Jon, what are you doing here? I came to talk to you. About Joffrey. Sansa's face lit up. Isn't he wonderful? So handsome and princely, and he's a monster. Jon's voice was flat. And if you marry him, he'll make your life a nightmare. Sansa's expression hardened. How dare you? You're just jealous because I'm trying to save your life. Joffrey is cruel, sadistic, and unstable. He enjoys hurting people, especially people weaker than him, especially women. Jon stepped closer. In front of everyone, he's the perfect prince. But in private, he'll beat you, humiliate you, break you, and you'll have no escape because you'll be his wife. You're lying. Father would never. Father doesn't know. Nobody knows except the people Joffrey's hurt, and they're too afraid to speak. Jon gripped her shoulders. Sansa, listen to me. I know you think I'm just the bitter bastard trying to ruin your dreams. But I'm not. I'm trying to keep you alive. The betrothal is going to fall apart. The Lannisters are going to fall. And when they do, you need to be as far from Joffrey as possible. Let go of me. Sansa pulled away. I don't believe you. You're just jealous and cruel, But remember this conversation. When Joffrey shows you who he really is, remember that I tried to warn you. Jon left before Sansa could respond. He'd planted the seed. Whether it took root or not was beyond his control. Next he found Arya practicing with Meadle in a secluded courtyard. "Jon," she ran to him, grinning. "Look what I can do." She demonstrated a clumsy thrust. "Not bad, but your footwork needs work. Here, let me show you." For the next hour, Jon taught Arya the basics of water dancing, the Braavosi style he'd watched her learn in his previous life. He corrected her stance, her grip, her movements. "How do you know this style?" Arya asked, fascinated. "I've traveled. Learned from different masters. Stick with it, Arya. You have natural talent. Don't let anyone tell you girls can't be fighters." "Really? You think I could be good?" "I think you could be one of the best. But you have to work. Every day. No excuses." Arya beamed. Jon felt a twist in his chest. This was the sister he'd failed to protect. The sister who'd become a faceless assassin, who'd lost herself in revenge, who'd sailed away from everything she'd known. Not this time. This time, Arya would survive, would thrive, would become the warrior she was meant to be, without losing herself in the process. Jon spent the next week moving between pieces. He met with Bronn's network, ensuring they were positioned throughout the city. He coordinated with Varys on gathering Robert's bastards. He fed information to Ned, guiding his investigation toward the truth about Joffrey. And he watched the Lannisters. Cersei was growing paranoid. Jon could see it in her movements, her expressions. She knew something was wrong, knew her secrets were in danger. But she didn't know how much Ned knew, or when he would move. Jaime was oblivious. The Golden Knight went about his duties without concern, confident in his invincibility. Tyrion watched everything with those mismatched eyes. He'd been quiet since Jon's warning. Was thinking. Planning. Calculating his own moves. On the 14th day after Littlefinger's death, Varys reported that all of Robert's bastards had been gathered. They're in a safe house near the docks. 16 children ranging from infants to teenagers. All with the Baratheon look, all ready to be presented when you give the word. Good. Now we wait for one more piece. Which piece? Robert needs to see the truth himself. Not just hear about it from Ned. He needs to look at his bastards and his supposed children side by side and see the impossibility with his own eyes. Jon's voice was cold. Arrange for Gendry to be brought to the Red Keep tomorrow. Tell him the king wants to see him. Make sure Robert is sober when it happens. That will be the challenging part. Then make it happen. This only works if Robert's mind is clear. The boy was terrified. Sure, he was about to be executed for some unknown crime. He was taken to a waiting room and told the king would see him shortly. Jon ensured Ned was present, ensured Robert was in the throne room. Then he had Gendry brought in, along with Joffrey, who'd been summoned on a pretext. Robert sat the Iron Throne, still half drunk but functional. He squinted at Gendry as the boy was marched forward. "Who's this?" "A blacksmith's apprentice, Your Grace," Ned said. "From Flea Bottom. I thought you should meet him." The boy stood straight despite his fear, his strong features and black hair unmistakable in the throne room's light. "Come closer, boy." Gendry approached the throne, stood at the base of the steps. Robert leaned forward, studying him. "How old are you?" 17, Your Grace." "Your mother?" "Dead, Your Grace. She worked in a tavern." Robert's face went still. He looked at Gendry's face, his build, his coloring. Then he turned and looked at Joffrey, standing to the side in his princely clothes. The contrast was stark. Gendry, black-haired, blue-eyed, strong-jawed, every inch a Baratheon. Joffrey, golden-haired, green-eyed, delicate features, every inch a Lannister. "Gods," Robert whispered, "he looks like me." "Exactly like I did at that age." Ned stepped forward. "Your Grace, I've been investigating something Jon Arryn was looking into before he died. He spent weeks reading the lineages of the great houses. Specifically, he was researching Baratheon genetics. Why? Because in 300 years of recorded history, every Baratheon union has produced black-haired children. When Baratheons marry Lannisters, Tyrells, Arryns, Targaryens, it doesn't matter. The children always have black hair. The Baratheon bloodline breeds true. Always. Robert's face was going pale. What are you saying, Ned? I'm saying your son, this boy Gendry, has your features, your hair, your build, everything. But the children you raised in the Red Keep, Ned paused. They don't. Robert stood abruptly, descended the throne steps, walked up to Gendry and stared at him, then turned and looked at Joffrey. Get out, Robert said to Joffrey. His voice was dangerous. Father, I said get out. Joffrey fled. The throne room cleared except for Robert, Ned, Jon, and Gendry. Robert turned to Ned. How many bastards do I have? 16 that we know of. Your Grace, we've gathered them. Would you like to see them? Bring them all here, now. Within an hour, the throne room was filled with children, teenagers and infants and everything in between. Every single one of them had black hair, strong features, blue eyes, the Baratheon look stamped on every face. Robert walked among them, staring, seeing himself in their faces, seeing what his true children should look like. Then he turned to Ned. His voice was hollow. Joffrey isn't mine. None of them are. No, Your Grace. I don't believe they are. Cersei and Jaime. It wasn't a question. The twins, the fucking twins have been. Robert couldn't finish. Rage and grief and humiliation warred on his face. Your Grace. Ned began. Guards! Robert's roar shook the throne room. Arrest Queen Cersei and Sir Jaime Lannister. Arrest them now. The Kingsguard looked at each other in confusion. Barristan Selmy stepped forward. Your Grace? On what grounds? Treason. Adultery. High crimes against the crown. Robert was shaking. Do it now or I'll find guards who will. Ser Barristan bowed stiffly. As you command, Your Grace. The arrests happened within the hour. Cersei was dragged from her chambers, screaming. Jaime was taken in the White Sword Tower, his face going white as he understood what was happening. The children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, were confined to their rooms. And Jon Snow stood in the shadows watching everything unfold exactly as he'd planned. One more piece had fallen. The Lannisters were broken. And the real game was about to begin. The Red Keep descended into chaos. Cersei Lannister screamed as guards dragged her through the corridors. You can't do this! I'm the Queen! The Queen! Her voice echoed off stone walls, desperate and furious. Jaime went quietly, his face a mask, already calculating escape routes that didn't exist. Jon watched from a shadowed alcove as they were taken to the black cells beneath the Red Keep. The dungeons where traitors rotted, where screams couldn't be heard, where the Lannisters would spend their final days. But Jon wasn't satisfied yet. The parent lions were caged, but the cubs remained, and Tywin Lannister was still free at Casterly Rock, already calling his banners the moment word reached him. Robert sat in his chambers, drinking himself into a stupor. Not wine this time. Pure Arbor gold, consumed in quantities that would kill a smaller man. Ned tried to counsel restraint, tried to advise patience in dealing with the Lannister children. Jon had different plans. He found Varys in the Spy Master's chambers, a room filled with maps and correspondence and secrets. The king is broken, Varys observed. 15 years of marriage built on lies. 3 children who aren't his. A crown built on sand. Robert will recover. He's a warrior. Warriors channel grief into rage. Jon's voice was cold. But we have a problem. Tywin Lannister. Indeed, my little birds report he's already mobilizing. 40,000 men will march from the Westerlands within a fortnight. He'll demand his children's release. Threaten war if Robert refuses. Let him threaten. We're going to give him a reason to stay his hand. Jon leaned over the map table. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are still in the Red Keep. Still under guard but not imprisoned. I need them moved. Tonight. Varys's eyes narrowed. Moved where? Somewhere secure. Somewhere Tywin can't reach them. Somewhere we can use them as leverage. Jon traced his finger along the map. A safe house in the city. One of your properties. Hidden. Guarded by bronze men. You're taking hostages. I'm securing assets. Tywin Lannister loves exactly two things in this world: his legacy and his control. His grandchildren represent both. Take them from him and he has to negotiate. Leave them in the Red Keep and he'll assume Robert will keep them safe despite everything. We need him afraid. The king will never approve kidnapping children. Then we won't tell him until it's done. Robert's drowning in cups. Ned's trying to manage the small council. The Kingsguard is confused about who to obey. The chaos gives us cover. Jon met Varys's eyes. Can you do it? Varys was quiet for a moment. If we take those children, there's no going back. Tywin will see it as an act of war. We're already at war. He just doesn't know he's lost yet. Jon straightened. Move them tonight. Use bronze men. Make it look like an escape attempt that we foiled. The children fled the Red Keep for their safety. We found them and moved them to protective custody. No one can blame us for protecting them from their father's enemies. And when Tywin demands their return, we tell him they'll be returned unharmed when he bends the knee, when he disbands his army, when he accepts that his daughter and son committed treason and the crown's justice will be carried out. Jon's voice was iron. The choice is his children's lives or his pride. Varys studied Jon for a long moment. You've become something terrifying, young lord. I'm not certain whether to be impressed or frightened. Be both. It's safer. That night, Bronn and 20 of his best men infiltrated the royal apartments. They moved with practiced silence, subduing guards who were loyal to the Lannisters, avoiding those loyal to the crown. Myrcella was first. The girl was 10, confused and frightened. She didn't scream when the men entered her room, just stared with wide green eyes. "Princess," Bronn said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "We're moving you somewhere safe. Your mother's enemies are dangerous. We need to protect you." "Where's my mother?" "Being kept safe too. Come quietly, and you won't be hurt." Myrcella went without resistance, too young to understand she was being taken hostage. Tommen was even easier. The boy was 8, soft and sweet-natured. When Bronn's men came for him, he asked only if he could bring his cats. "Sure, boy. Bring whatever you want." Joffrey was different. The prince was in his chambers, pacing like a caged animal, already plotting. When the door opened and sellswords entered instead of Kingsguard, he reached for a decorative sword on his wall. "Touch me, and I'll have you executed. I'm the prince. The heir to—" Bronn punched him. Not hard enough to cause real damage, but hard enough to knock him down. "You're nothing, boy. Your mother's a traitor. Your father's not really your father. You're just a golden-haired bastard who's outlived his usefulness." Joffrey's face went pale. "You can't? We are. Now move." They dragged Joffrey from the Red Keep, along with his siblings, moved them through secret passages to the streets of King's Landing, to a nondescript building in the shadow of Aegon's high hill, to a safe house where Varys's most trusted agents waited. By dawn, the Lannister children had vanished. The Red Keep erupted when their absence was discovered. Guards searched frantically. The Kingsguard mobilized. Robert, still drunk, screamed orders that contradicted each other. Ned found Jon in the Tower of the Hand. "Did you do this?" "Yes, gods." "Jon, those are children. Those are leverage. Tywin Lannister is marching on King's Landing with 40,000 men. When he arrives, we'll need something to bargain with. We should negotiate before it comes to war. There is no negotiating with Tywin Lannister. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't forgive. He destroys his enemies completely, or not at all." Jon's voice was hard. "The only language he understands is power. We took his grandchildren. Now he has to choose. War and risk their deaths, or peace and get them back. And if he chooses war, then we kill Cersei and Jaime publicly, make the children bastards officially, and dare him to attack the capital with his grandchildren inside it. Either way, we win. This isn't justice. This is cruelty. This is survival. Justice is a luxury for people who aren't fighting for their lives." Jon stepped closer. "Father, I know you hate what I've become. I know you think I've lost my honor, my soul, everything you tried to teach me. But I'm keeping this family alive. I'm preventing the war that would kill Robb, destroy Sansa, scatter Arya, cripple Bran, murder Rickon. I'm saving them. At whatever cost. At the cost of who you are. I already paid that cost. I died and came back. The person I was is gone. This is what's left. And what's left is enough. The silence between them was a chasm neither could cross. 3 days later, word reached King's Landing. Tywin Lannister was marching. 40,000 men. Moving fast, despite the size of his host. He'd be at the capital within 2 weeks. Robert, finally sober, convened the small council. "We have 20,000 men in the city," he said, his voice hoarse from drinking. "The gold cloaks, the garrison, whatever lords are loyal and nearby. Against 40,000 will be slaughtered if Tywin lays siege." "Then we don't let him lay siege," Jon said from his position against the wall. He wasn't officially part of the council, but Robert had demanded his presence. "We meet him on the field. We use the terrain to our advantage. We bleed his forces before they reach the capital." "You're a boy," Grand Maester Pycelle wheezed. "What do you know of warfare? Enough to know that sitting behind walls and waiting to be starved out is how you lose." Jon moved to the map table. "Tywin has to move along the Gold Road. There's no other route for an army that size. We position forces here." He pointed to a narrow pass between hills. "And here. Hit his vanguard, slow his advance. Force him to deploy in unfavorable terrain." "The boy's right," Robert said grudgingly. "We can't win a siege. But we can win a battle if we choose the ground carefully." "Your Grace," Ned said carefully, "perhaps we should try negotiation first." "Offer terms." "No." Robert's voice was final. "Tywin Lannister had his daughter cuckold me. Had his son dishonor his Kingsguard vows. Had bastards placed on my throne to steal the succession. There will be no negotiation. There will be blood. If Tywin wants war, I'll give him war." Jon hid his satisfaction. Robert was exactly where Jon needed him. Angry, determined, and ready to fight. The king's rage would carry them through what came next. "I'll lead the vanguard," Robert declared. 20,000 men. We march tomorrow. Your Grace, you're the king. You shouldn't risk. I'm a warrior first. This is what I'm good at. The throne can wait until I've crushed the Lannisters." Robert looked at Ned. "Your hand. You stay here. Keep the capital secure. If I fall, you rule as regent until we sort out the succession." "And the Lannister children?" Varys asked delicately. "Keep them hidden. Keep them safe. If Tywin surrenders, we'll negotiate. If he fights to the death, we'll decide then." Robert's eyes were cold. "But make no mistake, Cersei and Jaime die. Soon. Publicly. I want everyone to see what happens to traitors." The council dispersed. Jon caught Varys in the corridor afterward. "Robert's playing into our hands. He's emotional, not strategic. He'll charge into battle and might get himself killed." "Would that be such a loss?" Varys asked mildly. "Yes, because then Stannis becomes king, and Stannis is rigid, uncompromising, and won't listen to reason about the White Walkers. We need Robert alive. At least for now." Jon's mind was already working through contingencies. "I'm going with the army. You're not a soldier. I'm good enough, and I need to make sure Robert doesn't do something stupid like get himself killed charging Tywin's center." Jon started walking. "Keep the children safe. Keep Ned focused on holding the capital. And watch for assassins. Tywin will send them if he gets desperate." "Where will you be?" "Wherever I need to be to make sure we win." The royal army marched. 2 days later. 20,000 men. The city watch, the royal garrison, lords who'd answered the summons and arrived in time. Robert rode at their head, his warhammer strapped to his saddle, looking more alive than he had in months. Jon rode in the vanguard with 100 northern soldiers Ned had assigned to him, his new men from the Wolfswood, warriors who'd sworn oaths to him personally. The march west was hard and fast. Robert pushed the pace, eager for battle. They covered 50 miles in 3 days, then another 60. The scouts reported Tywin's position, still a week away, moving cautiously, his vanguard feeling out the terrain. On the 7th day, they reached the Gold Road Narrows, exactly where Jon had predicted. Hills on either side, a wide road through the middle. Perfect ambush terrain. "We dig in here," Robert ordered. "Fortify the high ground. When Tywin's vanguard enters the pass, we hit them from both sides. Crush them before they can retreat to the main force." Trenches were dug, stakes were planted, archers positioned on the hillsides, heavy infantry behind makeshift barricades. Jon positioned his 100 men on the left flank. Not in the front lines. He wasn't suicidal, but close enough to respond if the battle turned. He also positioned Bronn and 20 of his best fighters in a specific location, hidden, waiting. You know what to do? Jon asked. Yeah. When the battle starts, we slip through to Tywin's command position. Find the old lion. Kill him if we get the chance. Otherwise, create chaos. Bronn grinned. Suicide mission, basically. You're being paid enough to take suicide missions. True enough. 2 days later, Tywin's vanguard arrived. 5,000 men under Gregor Clegane, the Mountain. The same monster who'd raped and murdered Elia Martell, who'd burned the Riverlands, who'd served the Lannisters with brutal efficiency for decades. Jon watched from the hillside as the Mountain's forces entered the pass, confident, unaware. Robert waited until they were fully committed, then gave the signal. Horns blared, arrows filled the sky. The Mountain's men screamed as death rained from above. Heavy infantry charged down the hillsides. The trap sprung perfectly. The battle was brutal and short. The Mountain fought like a demon, his greatsword carving through anyone who came close. But he was outnumbered 10-1. His forces were slaughtered. Jon watched as Robert charged into the melee, his warhammer crushing skulls and shattering shields. The king was magnificent, a force of nature, unstoppable, exactly what he'd been 20 years ago at the Trident. The Mountain saw Robert, charged toward him. The two giants met in a clash that echoed across the battlefield. Gregor's greatsword swung in a massive arc. Robert's warhammer came up to block. Metal screamed. Both weapons rang like bells. They traded blows, massive, powerful strikes that would have killed normal men. The Mountain was taller, with longer reach, but Robert was stronger, with decades of experience. The warhammer came around in a brutal overhead swing, caught Gregor's helmet dead center. The steel crumpled. The Mountain staggered. Robert hit him again, and again. The third blow took Gregor Clegane's head clean off. The Mountain's body toppled. His forces broke. Those who could fled back down the Gold Road. The rest surrendered or died. Robert stood over Gregor's corpse, breathing hard, splattered with blood, grinning like a madman. That's how you fight a war. That's how a king fights. The army roared. Victory. First blood to Robert Baratheon. But Jon wasn't celebrating. He was watching the Gold Road, where the main Lannister force would be receiving word of their vanguard's destruction. Tywin would know now. Would know this wasn't a minor skirmish. This was war. And Tywin Lannister didn't lose wars. That night, Jon found Bronn in the camp. Report. We got close, within 50 yards of where Tywin should have been, but the old bastard wasn't there. He's staying well back from the fighting. Smart. Bronn shrugged. We killed maybe 20 of his officers, created some chaos, but Tywin himself, untouchable. Damn. I was hoping we could end this quickly. Tywin's not stupid. He knows he's the target. He'll stay protected until the decisive battle. Then we prepare for the decisive battle. Over the next 3 days, both armies maneuvered. Tywin pulled his forces back, refusing to engage on unfavorable terrain. Robert pushed forward, trying to force another confrontation. Neither side could gain decisive advantage. Then word arrived from King's Landing. A raven from Ned. Jon read it and felt cold satisfaction. Cersei Lannister and Jaime Lannister were executed this morning for high treason. Public beheading on the steps of the Great Sept. The crowd numbered in the thousands. The deed is done. Eddard Stark. Jon showed the message to Robert. The king's face was grim. Good. They deserved it. Now Tywin knows there's no going back. This ends with his surrender or his death. The message was sent to Tywin under a flag of truce. Jon watched from a distance as Tywin received it. Saw the old lion's face remain perfectly composed. No emotion, no reaction. But an hour later, the Lannister army began to withdraw, falling back toward the Westerlands, refusing engagement. He's running, Robert said contemptuously. The mighty Tywin Lannister is running like a coward. He's not running, Jon said quietly. He's retreating to defensible ground. Probably Casterly Rock. He'll force us to siege him, drag this out. Hope we lose patience or support. Then we'll give him a siege. I'll starve him out of that rock if it takes a year. It could take longer. Casterly Rock has never fallen. And winter's coming. Our army will freeze before Tywin runs out of food. Robert's face darkened. Then what do you suggest? Negotiate. From a position of strength. We've killed his vanguard, executed his children, hold his grandchildren hostage. Offer terms. He surrenders, disbands his army, accepts punishment for his house's crimes. In return, his grandchildren live and House Lannister survives. He'll never accept. Then we kill the children and destroy his legacy completely. Attaint House Lannister. Strip them of Casterly Rock. Give it to someone else. End the Lannisters as a great house. Jon's voice was cold. Either way, we win. He just has to choose how much he loses. Robert considered this. Send the offer. Let's see if Tywin Lannister's pride is stronger than his love for his legacy. The armies remained in position, watching each other across the fields of the Westerlands. Then Tywin's response arrived. King Robert, I will meet you under a flag of truce to discuss terms. Choose the place and time. Tywin Lannister. They met on neutral ground. A field between the armies. Robert brought Ned, Barristan Selmy, and Jon. Tywin brought Kevan Lannister and 2 household knights. Jon studied Tywin as they approached. The old lion looked exactly as Jon remembered from his previous life. Cold, controlled, immaculate even in a war camp. His green eyes assessed everything, calculated constantly. Your Grace, Tywin said, his voice neutral. You wished to negotiate. I wish to give you a chance to surrender with some dignity, Robert corrected. Your children are dead. Your grandchildren are hostages. Your vanguard is destroyed. Your house's honor is in tatters. The question is whether you want to lose everything, or just most of it. Those are the only options you're offering. Those are the only options you've earned. You put bastards on my throne. You dishonored the crown. You tried to steal the succession. Robert's voice was hard. I could have your entire house attainted, could give Casterly Rock to someone else, could end the Lannister name entirely. I'm offering you survival. Take it or don't. Tywin's face remained expressionless. What are your terms? You disband your army immediately. You submit yourself to the crown's justice, which will be exile, not execution. You surrender all claims to political office. Your grandchildren will be declared bastards officially and removed from succession. House Lannister keeps Casterly Rock and its wealth, but you personally are finished. And my grandchildren's lives will be spared, raised away from King's Landing, given decent lives but no power. And if I refuse, then we lay siege to Casterly Rock, starve you out. When you finally surrender, and you will, I execute your grandchildren in front of you. Then I execute you. Then I give everything your house owns to my bastards. Robert leaned forward. You're a practical man, Tywin. Do the mathematics. This is the best offer you'll get. Tywin was quiet for a long moment. Jon could see the calculations running behind those cold green eyes. Pride versus pragmatism. Legacy versus vengeance. Finally, Tywin spoke. I have a counteroffer. I'm listening. I will disband my army. I will accept exile. I will surrender all political claims. House Lannister will endure the shame. But Tywin's eyes were hard as flint. My grandson Tyrion becomes Lord of Casterly Rock. Not as punishment, but as recognition that he's the only Lannister with the competence to rebuild what's been destroyed. And my grandchildren by Cersei are allowed to live in the Westerlands, not shipped off to who knows where. Robert looked at Ned. Ned looked at Jon. Jon gave the slightest nod. Done, Robert said. Tyrion Lannister becomes Lord of Casterly Rock. Your bastard grandchildren can stay in the West, under his supervision. You go into exile. I'm thinking the Citadel, since you're so clever. Become a maester if you want. Just stay out of politics forever. Agreed. Tywin extended his hand. Robert didn't take it. I'm not shaking your hand. I'm not your friend. You're lucky I'm letting you live. Now get your army off the field before I change my mind. Tywin's face flickered with rage for just a moment. Then the mask returned. As you command, Your Grace. The Lannister forces withdrew. Within a week, they'd disbanded. Tywin rode for the Citadel in Old Town, accompanied by a small guard. House Lannister's power was broken, and Jon had orchestrated the whole thing. The royal army returned to King's Landing in triumph. The small folk lined the streets, cheering. Robert rode at the head, his warhammer held high, looking younger and stronger than he had in years. Jon rode in the back, unnoticed, exactly as he preferred. The celebration feast that night was massive, the throne room packed with lords and ladies, all toasting the king's victory. Robert drank and laughed and told stories of the battle. The mood was jubilant. Jon found Ned on a balcony, away from the noise. "You did it," Ned said quietly. "You destroyed the Lannisters, saved the realm from civil war, kept us all alive. For now, the real war is still coming. The White Walkers." "Yes, and we have maybe 2 years to prepare, maybe less." Jon looked at his father. "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Convince Robert to take the threat seriously. Send resources to the wall, dragonglass weapons, men, supplies, everything the Night's Watch needs to hold when the dead come. Robert doesn't believe in White Walkers. Make him believe. You're his hand, his oldest friend. If anyone can convince him, it's you." Jon's voice was intense. "This is what everything has been for. Not the throne, not politics, survival. The living versus the dead. And if we're not ready, everyone dies." Ned studied him. "You've changed so much. Sometimes I look at you and I don't recognize the boy I raised. That boy died. This is what came back. Is it enough? I don't know. But it's kept us alive. That's something." They stood in silence, looking out over King's Landing. The city sprawled beneath them, 500,000 souls unaware of the threat gathering in the frozen north. A week later, Jon requested a private audience with Robert. They met in the king's chambers. Robert was sober, a rarity but increasingly common since the Lannister War. Victory had revitalized him, given him purpose. "What do you want, Jon Snow? Come to demand a reward for your service? A lordship? Gold?" "No, Your Grace. I came to tell you who I really am." Robert's eyebrows rose. "You're Ned's bastard. Everyone knows that. That's the lie Ned told to protect me. The truth is different." Jon took a breath. "My mother was Lyanna Stark. My father was Rhaegar Targaryen. I'm not Ned's bastard. I'm his nephew, and I'm the last living son of the man you killed at the Trident." Silence. Absolute silence. Robert's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, denial, rage, confusion. His hand moved to where his warhammer usually rested. "You're lying." "Ask Ned. He'll confirm it. I'm Aegon Targaryen, though I prefer Jon Snow. Lyanna died giving birth to me at the Tower of Joy. Ned promised to protect me. So he lied. Told everyone I was his bastard. Let Catelyn hate him. Let me grow up as a bastard rather than reveal the truth and watch you kill me." Robert stared at him. "Rhaegar's son. You're Rhaegar's son. Yes, I should kill you. You could try, but you won't." Jon's voice was calm. "Because I'm also Lyanna's son, and I've proven my worth. I helped destroy the Lannisters. I kept the realm together. I saved your throne. Why are you telling me this now? Because you need to legitimize me." Robert laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Legitimize a Targaryen? Are you mad? I'm practical. You have no legitimate heirs. Gendry is a good boy, but he's common-born, untrained, unprepared to rule. Your brothers are options, but Stannis is rigid, and Renly is frivolous. The realm needs stability. Needs someone who understands warfare and politics, and the threats to come." Jon stepped closer. "Legitimize me as Jon Stark Targaryen. Name me Prince of the Realm. Make me your heir until you father legitimate children with someone new. Give the realm a succession that makes sense. You're asking me to name my enemy's son as my heir. I'm asking you to name Lyanna's son as your heir. The woman you loved. The woman who died. You wanted to honor her memory. Do it. Take the child she gave the world and make him something greater than a bastard or a pretender." Robert was quiet for a long time. He poured wine, drank, poured more, stared at Jon with eyes that held decades of complicated emotions. Finally, he spoke. "You look like her. I can see it now. The eyes, the hair, the way you stand. You have her stubbornness." His voice was rough. "And you have Rhaegar's strategic mind, his ability to plan, his cold pragmatism." Is that a yes? It's a maybe. Let me think. Let me talk to Ned. Let me Process this. Robert waved him away. Get out. Leave me alone. Jon left, but he knew he'd won. Robert would agree. The king was practical enough to see the value, sentimental enough to do it for Lyanna's memory, and ambitious enough to want a competent heir. 3 days later, Robert made his announcement. In the throne room, before the assembled court, the king proclaimed, "I have learned a truth that was hidden for 15 years. Jon Snow is not Eddard Stark's bastard. He is the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, trueborn by the laws of gods and men." The court erupted, shouts of shock, denial, confusion. Robert raised his hand for silence. "I legitimize Jon Snow as Jon Stark Targaryen, Prince of the Realm. He will be my heir until such time as I father legitimate children. He will have all rights and privileges of royal blood, and anyone who questions this decision can answer to my warhammer. Jon is my sister's son. I have raised him as my own to protect him from those who would have killed him for his father's sins. But he has proven himself worthy, not as a Targaryen, not as a Stark, as himself." The lords knelt, one by one, some enthusiastically, some reluctantly, but they knelt. Jon stood beside the Iron Throne, wearing the black and red of both houses, and felt the weight of a crown he'd never wanted settling onto his shoulders. But he didn't sit the throne. Not yet. That would come later if Robert died. For now, Jon had what he needed: legitimacy, authority, and the power to prepare for what was coming. The final scene came 2 weeks later. Jon stood atop the wall, having traveled north with supplies and men for the night's watch. The wind howled across the frozen wasteland beyond. In the distance, barely visible, blue lights flickered in the darkness. The White Walkers were stirring. The long night was beginning. Samwell Tarly stood beside him, now a sworn brother of the Watch. "Your Grace, do you really think they're coming?" "I know they're coming. I've seen it, dreamed it. The dead will march. And when they do, the 7 kingdoms need to be ready." Jon looked at Sam. "That's why I did everything I did. Destroyed the Lannisters, took the throne, united the realm. Not for power, for survival. Will we be ready? We'll have to be. The alternative is extinction." Jon turned from the wall. "Come on, we have work to do. Dragon glass to mine, weapons to forge, defenses to build, and only 2 years to do it all." As they descended, Jon thought about his previous life, about the mistakes, the failures, the deaths, about Ned's execution, and Robb's murder, and Rickon's death, and all the pain that had come from trying to be honorable in a world that rewarded ruthlessness. This time, he'd been ruthless, had manipulated and killed and destroyed without mercy, had become the villain of his own story. But his family was alive. The realm was united. The Lannisters were broken, and Westeros stood ready to face the real enemy. Jon Snow had lost his honor, had burned away everything Ned Stark taught him about duty and justice and doing the right thing. But he'd won, had saved everyone he loved, had positioned the realm to survive the long night. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The Game of Thrones was over. The war for the Dawn was beginning. And this time, Jon Snow was ready. He'd paid the price, had sacrificed his soul, his honor, his innocence, had become everything he'd sworn never to be. But the people he loved were alive, and they would stay alive. Whatever it took, whatever he had to do, however dark he had to become. The bastard who became a prince, the honorable boy who became a ruthless king, the Jon Snow who died and came back as something else, something colder, something harder, something that could win. Far to the south, in King's Landing, Robert Baratheon sat the Iron Throne and drank to his new heir, to the son of the woman he'd loved and the man he'd hated, to the future of the 7 kingdoms. And in Old Town, Tywin Lannister walked the halls of the Citadel in grey robes, stripped of everything he'd built, and plotted revenge he would never achieve. And in the dungeons beneath Casterly Rock, Tyrion Lannister sat in his new solar, Lord of the Rock at last, and toasted the bastard who'd destroyed his father and given him everything he'd never been allowed to have. And on the wall, Jon Snow looked north and prepared for the only war that mattered. The long night was coming, but this time, the realm would be ready. This time, they would win. And Jon Snow, who had lost his honor but kept his family, stood watch over a world he'd saved through ruthlessness, manipulation, and cold, calculated pragmatism. The Shadow Master of Winterfell. The prince who had no honor. The king who would save the dawn. His story was complete. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.